Okay, welcome to our 2016-17 budget sessions. I think after a couple rounds that we've had it with this board that we're becoming more familiar with what's going on. So in response to that, I've inundated you with additional paperwork that maybe we didn't do in previous years. It's not to bog things down, it's just to give you a little more information about the process and about, kind of what we're facing right now when it comes to the tax cap considerations and a lot of I would say largely A fund challenges. A fund obviously being your general fund, your F and G funds, because the board made a very strong decision to look at your rates for your water. Those departments are now, they're doing better, they're improving. The water department no longer needs to borrow money to pay its last month of payroll from the sewer department. The sewer department is benefiting also because of the ratios that are involved. And those two departments still have heavy debt, but the financial setup in those departments is sufficient for you to start to work that debt down and to really make those departments strong and self-sufficient for the most part. So I'm pretty comfortable with the financials of your water and sewer departments where they are today.
With the bands?
With the bands, I've never been comfortable with the debt,
Right.
okay? But the infrastructure was allowed to so long not be dealt with to some degree that it all kind of came all together. You had the water tank painting, you had a lot of stuff related to the water department, you have the digesters, you have sanitary sewer bonds, and then in the 2009 and 12 bonds, you have a lot of wastewater items and water items in those long-term notes that we pay off. So your debt situation is high, but it is going in the right direction because you're now able to pay down some of this because your performance in those two departments is better. So you have operating surpluses that you can start to apply toward your debt. Okay, so that's a better situation in the last year or so than you had when you guys kind of took office and had to face it. You guys have benefited from making, I think, like I said, your rate decision was important, and it's helping everything along the road in those special districts. Okay, the general fund is also somewhat of a victim of a lot of equipment and infrastructure deteriorating, and you don't really have much formal reserves, or you didn't have any formal reserves really to fall on as far as being able to draw from those. There were some informal reserve set-asides, but they went right to fund balance and essentially, are not necessarily earmarked to anything legally. The tax cap challenge that all boards have is real. I handed out to everybody a sheet. It looks like this. It's a one-page, says property tax cap, and it's got a graph on it. And what I really want to show you, and again, our first topic is budget preparation guidance and important dates. So the first thing is the guidance, and I want to show you where the Office of State Comptroller is going as far as the tax cap law. If you look in 2012, from June 1st to May 31st, which is our fiscal year, 2012, the inflation factor was 3.04. The levy growth was essentially 2%. Okay, 1.02 is 2%. 2013, tax cap inflation factor was 2.17. The growth factor is 2%, 1.02. 2014, 1.48 inflation factor, tax cap allowable levy factor is 0.10148, which is 1.5%. 2015, which was last year, or this current year that we're in, you have a 1.68 inflation factor. Your tax cap was 1.68%. That was your allowable growth factor. Let's take a look at 2016. Inflation factor, 0.12%, 1/10 of 1%. Your allowable levy factor is 0.0012, which is 1/10 of 1%, which is negligible. Essentially what this is telling you is the budget total that you had last year as far as revenue from taxation has to stay the same, but one caveat, you won't be able to rely on fund balance this year to help fund your revenue lines. You could do it, but you'll put your fund balance in what I would consider a very low condition. I'm waiting on the audits to come back to give me the final certifications of the numbers, but I believe our general fund balance, I believe, was about 500,000. Okay, that you need to maintain in that area. Now, mind you, your fund balance has really taken a beating because of a variety of factors. Police department retirement payouts, vacation for those payouts. You had 2 police officers retire. Your payouts were, I believe, somewhere in a vicinity of $80,000-ish. You have had equipment issues, repairs. The loader, if you guys remember, was a pretty expensive expense. You had the knocking down of that building over in Center Street, which we will get reimbursed for. I believe we have been. I gotta just review that.
They are going to do that?
I believe so. I believe they did.
Okay.
I believe they did. I just have to verify the numbers. Excessive overtime last year, where a lot of departments went over. And other items that are really, taking its cut. Now, a couple positives. We have less snow issues this year. We budgeted $40,000 for snow removal.
Don't say it, we could have.
Well,
March is a crazy month.
yeah, March is a crazy month, but you're still in pretty darn good shape.
I hate it when they say
But
that.
just heating too, is there any
My
sort
last
of,
name is Murphy. It
Yeah.
could snow a lot.
the bills for the gas furnace or boil for the building here, is there any notable difference in what's?
It's kind of short term to know, and it's a
Yeah, that's
recent
right.
repair. But, we'll know, we have to assume that there will be a benefit. It's also not been as cold of a
No,
year,
it's
so that
pretty
should
warm,
help.
yeah.
But right now, you're sitting on $36,000 in your overtime for snow removal. And even if, let's say, we have 1 or 2 big storms, I say you walk away maybe with 25,000 out of that line. That comes to your plus. Webb Lane Bridge, last payment is this year, so you won't have that bond service. We
Last
restructured
time is this year right now?
this year that we're in now. Yeah, so Webb Lane Bridge goes off
20 grand?
18.5, I believe it was. Yeah.
Close enough.
Okay, so that comes back into your column, all right? So right out of the gate, maybe $50,000 in surplus from this year's budget will now give you a little bit of room toward that $200,000 fund balance. There's a lot of other factors involved here. That's why I asked you guys to consider a freeze and make sure that all spending in 04s is monitored by the board. Because if, let's say, that austerity puts $75,000 back in your pocket, then now you're now looking for $75,000.
So what's for, would it, like,
I'm sorry, Brian?
The equipment lines.
equipment?
Oh, the 04, contractual, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're contractual. Again, being a new board member, I should
That's fine.
review all this. Also, Brian, what I did is I left copies
Yeah,
here.
get this.
I'll leave this on the table. If you have some time and you want to flip through it, this will give you kind of the structure of the budgeting process. The oversight responsibilities of reserve funds, the budget process, which is right here, which is good to look at. It's a simple read. And then the actual accounting numbers, which this is a little bit of a sleeping pill, so I wouldn't worry too much about this.
4 is not equipment.
I'm
04,
sorry,
no, 02 is
contractual.
equipment, so 01 is your salaries, your personal services salaries. Your 02 is equipment, your 04 is contractual. You have some other numbers there, but they are more toward your debt lines, your benefit lines, and so on. The main ones you're really gonna be referencing are 01, 02, and 04. Okay?
What is the one again?
01 is your salaries, personal services numbers. And then,
Salaries, equipment.
and then the way I have it structured, your 01-2 is your overtime. Okay, because the first year we broke out the overtime, so you guys had a picture of what was going on with overtime. Because before, it was really just built into the personal services line, so you really weren't able to readily tell what was going on with OT. So that will help you. Okay, so the tax caps considerations, essentially, we're gonna be looking at a budget that, oh, did we lose them?
I lost.
We're gonna be looking at a budget of last year's numbers plus, minus about 200,000. And then whatever residuals we gain from the austerity we're doing for the last 4 months of this year, okay? Now, as I said yesterday, you have a couple areas where if you balance out your 04 contractuals with your personal services, at this point, you won't be in a deficit in those lines, okay? So the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to give you a quick copy of the dates of the, I think I gave you guys that, right?
Yes.
Okay, the date schedule, I'm sorry, it looks like this, it says Appendix B on it. Okay? Everybody has that, yeah, that's it. Okay, it looks like this. I handed it to you with the schedule. Okay? Brian looks at this. Okay, these are the important dates. Just quickly, budget officer notifies the heads, we've done it. Administrative units have to submit their budget numbers to the budget officer. That's March 1st, obviously. I look to get that earlier because I have to populate the spreadsheets with all of this. So we are in good shape on that this year, which is good. I'll have a tentative budget after all of our meetings to submit to the village clerk by the 20th. The village clerk then has 11 days to present the board with the tentative budget. You guys will host a public hearing before the 15th of April. After the public hearing, we will be able to make any adjustments to the budget that you deem so necessary. And then a final budget will be produced, and then you will have a board meeting to vote on the final budget and adoption. Okay, so this is just a quick summary of the chronology. It's essentially about a 15 week process from the last week of January until the first day in May. All right, and we're on target. Everything that we've got set up right now is in line with what we need to do. As long as we keep our schedule as far as the dates of Mondays and Wednesdays. I built in 2 additional days if we get bogged down in something to help us with finalizing our tentative budget.
When I'm looking at this, like it says, police department, so on March 2nd, the police department comes up and sits with us?
Yes.
All of them?
No,
No,
the
just
chief.
the chief.
The chief,
And the fire department, just the chief?
yes.
Or sometimes
Couple of them.
chief and assistant chief.
Okay.
At a minimum, it's the department head.
Okay, I didn't know. All right, good.
Yeah. So, but they are producing numbers for you in advance, so you can review those numbers and then be ready with questions when they essentially try to support their budgets. Okay? All right. My role as budget officer is different from my role as treasurer. My role as budget officer is essentially to guide the board in the process of determining the budget. I don't have any influence here as far as I don't vote. I don't necessarily have any ability to tell the board one way or another. My role is advisory. And I am open to any suggestions that will help this board come together with a good budget. I will, unless the board doesn't want me to, I'll interject my opinions on certain things to help guide you in making a decision. One of my areas of background is costing and cost controls. So a lot of that experience I'll put forward to help in determination. That's part of how I determined to advise the board to put a freeze on, because I saw that this was coming and I was concerned that if we waited until April to start talking about this, we might be $50,000 further down the road. So that's my role. Now, as treasurer, my role is to manage the bookkeeping, okay? Distinct relationships, okay? Treasurer and budget officer are two different roles. And while I'm sitting as budget officer, I'm not in any capacity doing anything as treasurer, okay? So that's important. A lot of people get a little confused as treasurer, budget officer, same thing. It's not, okay? All right, I talked about tax cap considerations. Essentially, what I recommend this board consider is a budget that is $200,000 less than last year's tax requirements, okay, on the budget. Let me just pull out the budget.
Is there?
What's the name?
So within the tax cap, things like the special payments related to retirees and pension, all of that is not exempt from the tax cap? It all counts?
There is certain bonds and debt that does get some consideration, but it's rarely the case. Like, we didn't get any benefit last year from any debt service.
So when you say I'm suggesting $200,000, right?
Yes.
Then all departments take a hit.
No, that's how, it depends on how you want to slice it.
So shouldn't there be some equality?
Depends on their needs.
Well, remember, A fund, G fund,
I
F
understand, I
fund,
understand.
okay? G fund and F fund are separate entities.
Mhm.
Their economics that I'm talking about here are not impacted
Okay.
like your A fund. So your A fund is essentially administration, police department, public works, your governing board, your treasurer, your village clerk, your debt service, A fund debt service, which again, the board has a lot of A fund debt that you're having to pay. I showed you yesterday, we restructured some of it, where we had that 9-year bond, $30,000 will be the payment. We do have a ban. A good part of that ban is water and sewer, which is funded. The remainder of that ban, that A fund piece, is that 9-year serial bond.
Okay. I don't mean to be asking this question.
No,
It's
Brian,
first.
this is your
Yeah.
first go-around really on this, so.
Pretty much, isn't everything that's, the F and G and everything else is A?
Yeah, you do have your capital fund, but that's
So
largely,
Water and sewer, two different.
that's largely supported through your grants and FEMA money and stuff like that. You can fund your capital projects through village bonds, and in years past, that's been the case, but
What is the fire department? What,
that's A fund,
that's A fund,
yes,
along with the police?
yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, essentially everything but sewer
And
and
water,
water.
is A fund.
Okay.
And sewer and water is not an issue now, but I mean, we have debt, like you say, and hopefully if interest rates stay where they're at. I mean, are you gonna take a different look at this if interest rates go up 2% in the next year as far as bans for financing?
Yeah, right now, the way interest rates are structured right now, it makes every sense for the board to have flexibility right now with a ban.
Yeah.
Because I expect the auction next week to give you maybe 0.7, 0.8%.
I think that's, they're looking long with these rates too. I mean, that's what I've been listening to,
That's
what
right.
they're saying.
A fund?
But I mean, when does this change? I mean, is
When
it
the-
one point?
When the government's continues to print money and the inflation indicators start to rule.
Thank you.
And what I mean by that is, the government's printing massive amounts of money, but because we're in a deflationary environment, that printing doesn't have any risk right now.
So right now, basically, as long as the interest rates or the inflation rate stays below 1,
The government can
flat.
print money without
we're gonna
consequence.
stay short on our debt.
Correct, without consequence, but that's not forever,
Yeah.
okay? Take a look at what happened to Venezuela.
No,
Venezuela
that
has
doesn't change.
has a 100% inflation rate daily.
Yeah.
So a loaf of bread at $1, the next day is $2, and then $4. So, but that could be 5 years from now, it could be 20 years from now. Because the problem in the world is the United States is the strongest out of a lot of weaklings. So while the rest of the world is really struggling, the United States doesn't have a great balance sheet, but it's the strongest of
Yeah,
the
it
strugglers.
doesn't mean we're in good shape, but it's,
No.
it means we're in better shape.
We're at
now.
$19 trillion in debt. At some point, I think they did an analysis, 24 million is the point of no return. I'm sorry, 24 trillion.
Trillion.
24 trillion is the point of no return, where the US could not pay back the debt.
So what do they do at that point? Just everybody takes a haircut and they start from scratch?
Then somebody basically says, we're not paying our debts, the whole world goes into collapse, and then the survivors pick themselves up and start from scratch.
Zombie apocalypse, basically.
So, but for your purposes for next year, vans are still not a risk, okay? And what it also allows you to do is it allows you to pay back additional
Just
amounts.
saying that, I like that.
Okay, so if next year, when our ban that we're going, our $970,000 ban comes to be paid next March 1st, if the sewer and water department are showing strong fund balances, this board can say, we'd like to increase our contribution to the ban, and then maybe you come out of the $970,000 ban next year with a $600,000 ban, because you've been able to pay off a large chunk of that debt. Okay, so so the flexibility you have with bond anticipation notes right now is absolutely good. It's absolutely a good plan. Okay, so the A fund is going to factor in the tax cap, and the total, and again, I was looking for the current budget, and I think I left it on the chair downstairs. The number is somewhere in around, I believe, like 2.7 million or 2.5 million in taxation. Oh, okay, thanks, Jan. Okay, so we're looking at our taxation number, okay? So our taxation number is going to be looking at we're at 3049. We're gonna have to stay at 3049. But then we also have fund balance that we allocated of 200,000. So our actual taxation that we're gonna be able to raise is about 2.8. Okay? So when we start breaking all the numbers down, 2.8 is going to be our target in spending. That means no allocated fund balance. That means sticking with the revenue ratios that we had. And the only other caveat here is I have to review the assessed values, because that changes. And that will adjust this number a little bit either way, depending on where our assessments come in. Okay? If we have stronger assessments, we're going to have a little stronger ability to for dollars.
Last year, we had some numbers that were coming in and less, when people got their properties reevaluated, and we got stuck on was it twice?
But that doesn't affect, your assessments aren't going to affect your tax cap.
Okay, but it's still, as far as revenue coming in, it's still revenue coming in.
Yeah, so if your assessments goes down, what will happen is that the taxes per home will go up incrementally, but it will stay within the tax cap factor. because that's
Oh, it
based
doesn't
on the
impact-
overall.
It doesn't impact the tax cap?
No, so if,
Oh, okay, all right.
no, because essentially, it's looking at, the factor's looking at what are the dollars that you have acquired last year? What are the dollars that you could acquire this year? If your assessments are lower, that means there's less houses to pick from, which means all those houses have a little bit more cost to get to that number. Okay, you follow me?
Yes, I mean.
All right,
the rate-
so,
the rate per
so if
thousand
your
is more.
assessments go down, it means that each home has to carry more weight
No.
Right.
to pay to get to that bottom line number. If our assessments go up, it essentially appears to the taxpayer that they're getting tax reduction. Okay? Effectively, it's because you have more boats contributing.
How much do we receive in sales tax revenue?
Sales tax revenue, actually, we just did get a check, and I believe it was 290,000 for quarterly. And our sales tax, right now is running at, about, I'd say we're at about 1.15 million. So 1,150,000 is what we're gonna get this year in sales tax.
Over $1 million?
Oh, yeah.
What do we do with that?
That's revenue for you guys.
I like that.
That's revenue. Okay, so that factors in to your revenues. Now, when I look at what we budgeted last year for sales tax, we budgeted 1.139. Right now, we have one more quarter outstanding, and we'll get that in April. Our last one was 289,000 that we got in our sales tax figure. And if we, let's say the fourth quarter, or essentially for us, our fourth quarter, the county's second quarter, if it's as strong as the third quarter was, we'll be a net, I want to say a net 30,000 in the plus from what we budgeted. Okay? So yeah, sales tax revenue is a very important part of our revenue. And that falls under estimated revenues on the budget. So if you look at the budget sheet, you'll have your total appropriations, you'll have your estimated revenue, your appropriated fund balance, and your taxation. And then last year, your budget for the general fund was 4.8 million. And out of that, 300,000 was taxation. Okay, so if we have stronger estimated revenues, here's examples of estimated revenues. Fines from traffic tickets and things like that, okay? So essentially your, what's called fines and forfeited bail. You budgeted $30,000 last year. Right now, in the beginning of the fourth quarter, you are at 30,000. So the prosecutor is doing a above-plan job this year, okay? One of the things the auditors mentioned to me, though, is they were a little shocked to see how low the meter collections were in last year's numbers.
As were we.
And I explained to them that it's kind of a silly reason, let's put it that way. That's something that, again, it's not a huge number, but it certainly benefits your estimated revenue lines. Some other revenues, you have utilities and gross receipts. Right now, you have about 15,000 outstanding. We should see some more there.
Do we have an opportunity to renegotiate with Time Warner, or is that done through the
I
town?
believe that's a state controlled. I think it's a 1% levy. I believe that's controlled by the state. So,
We have a contract, 10-year contract.
Is it 10-year?
Yeah.
Franchise fee with Time Warner is different than like gross utility.
utilities, yeah, franchise fees are different. Let's see, what's another big item, CHIPS money. We always budget 25,000. That's the highway. CHIPS is essentially a state aid to highways based on the number of road miles that you have in your municipality.
Same number this year?
We always budget 25 because it's somewhat of a moving target. It's hard to really know. So it's traditionally in that range.
Did we get 25%?
I don't have any record of it yet. Let's see what else. We do have interfund revenues, and I talked to the board about the revenues. Now you have interfund revenues and interfund transfers. The other departments are going to have to be costed more for what they get. I was talking with the village clerk today. In past, all the billing, as far as the cost for billing, the envelopes, the mailings, all that stuff, the A fund was somewhat paying for. And we're gonna try to nail down that when we order envelopes, F and G fund pay their share of the envelopes, okay? The stamps and the sale and the sending out of the bills. We do get a $13,000 per department administration fee for the processing of those bills. That's pretty accurate. It's probably, doesn't really, I don't think it's excessive or under. But then we also talked about the cost of insurance being an interfund transfer. We talked about the cost of other
Have
departments.
we done that to this?
We did last year.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember if we did.
Yeah,
that.
we did last year, and we have it budgeted for this year.
Okay,
So they pay for it, the insurance?
Well, now they will.
Yeah.
Before, the A fund paid the whole insurance bill.
Well, that's gonna keep on killing us.
Yeah, so now we have it broken down 50, 25, 25, as far as insurance. So a lot of the big ticket stuff, we're trying to share the wealth on, and that will help the A fund, and it's legitimate and is supportable in an audit, okay? So the revenue side is going to be a very important thing. The more we can put in estimated revenues, the easier we have on the taxation side, okay? So right now, the ratio is approximately 65% taxation and 35% estimated revenues. Again, appropriated fund balance is something that the board does have the ability to do, but the A fund, I don't think has much room to touch that this year.
We literally have only 500.
I believe, I'll know officially when we get the audit back, but the AUD numbers were somewhere in that range. You did last year, the year before, you did take big hits because of those payments that you had to make. Okay, the retirements and, you have some, we talked about 207C and those costs involved. You're paying for employees that you don't have their services of for the most
now
part.
the 207C, does that stay in the A fund for?
Until they are picked up by the state.
When does that usually happen?
There's been 2 attempts by the village to send letters to the state for them to consider taking him on, and it's been denied.
Okay.
We have 2, Bruce is off in April, and then we just have Fernandez.
And he's the one who got denied.
Yes.
Bruce,
I would say, for purposes of the discussion, because of the public, I would
Right,
say
okay,
it's
yeah.
Officer A and Officer B.
okay, good.
Officer B.
Okay, so that,
Which one's A, which one's B?
at some point in time though, April will be, one will be removed from the A fund and then.
Right.
Yes, yeah, and that scenario letter was received, that's a done deal, and they have received everything they're supposed to get, and it's just the clock ticking to get that behind us.
Okay.
All right, but again, when you look at the police department budget, you'll see that there is payments for roster employees, but they're not available for the shift. And that obviously, it takes a big chunk. It's a relatively large cost, okay? So I just want to have you understand where we've got to find, where we've got to look. Okay, if the village wanted to do some bake sales or something to help bring that revenue in, you could probably do that too.
Sweet.
Are you a good baker there, Mayor?
I can get it done.
I like cupcakes.
Wouldn't that be a trip though? Bake sale because of the tax cap.
I'm in.
Are we making any sort of funding for, so like, officer who just retired, and that pension was considerable, not pension, but is going out the door cash is, are we funding any sort of contingency fund for this type of thing? Are we just?
Is really, I was looking at the reserves to see if there's ability for the board to build a reserve fund like that, and there really isn't a legitimate reserve line for that.
So you just gotta absorb it out of the AA when that happens?
Well, truthfully, what you have to do is you have to collectively bargain lower accumulation numbers for vacation.
Retirement, right.
Because their state retirement is already built in, that they've contributed to that, that's the ERS and PFRS that this board has to budget and make a payment to, which your ERS and PFRS accounts for about $400,000 a year for the
I
retirement.
thought we did cut back
On,
on the amount of days they can take with them.
well, that's a negotiated
I
item.
understand.
There is stuff in the handbook for regular employees, but the regular employees that are non-union, it's not really an issue. There's not a lot of those employees, and they certainly aren't carrying the hefty salaries that some of these other departments are carrying. So in the negotiations, that would be an important target, is to limit or cut back on the number of carryover hours annually that those officers can have, and/or employees, whether it's public works or fire,
That's a difficult,
or police.
that's difficult.
It is difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult, and a lot of it's coming to roost now, because a lot of these people, when they were hired, the benefits were strong, the
They
carryover
were. It
was
was a
strong, the
different time.
salaries
Yeah.
weren't very high.
No, but the benefits were, well, they were smart too, because they went after the benefits when they knew the salaries couldn't be.
That's right. So the salaries were here, the benefits were here, the salaries went to here, the benefits went to here. So essentially, it completely, the seesaw went.
Benefits when it was low and they
So, you
chased
know,
that, yeah.
it wasn't a seesaw where salaries went up, benefits went down. It was essentially salaries went up, benefits climbed a little bit too,
Yeah.
not to the degree of salaries. So you didn't get that seesaw effect, so your aggregate overall costs have went up. And this isn't just this village, it's New York State in general.
But that's, we're seeing that in the borough awards now, I mean.
Yeah,
This can't be sustained, it can't, I mean, everybody's strapped, I mean, people going out the door and all of a sudden, like, if you read the things that happen in Newburgh with their budget, and it's just, that's not exclusively Newburgh's issue.
Mhm.
They're all having it, Clarkstown, all of them, they're just looking at things that they can't pay.
which is why this board's effort to review consolidation and sharing services is a necessity.
Yeah.
It's a necessity. So, so that's pretty much the rundown of what we're gonna do with tax cap. Nugent Hauser management notes, I don't have any yet. I did send an email to find out the status of our report. We normally get it about this time. They must be a little backed up, and hopefully we'll have something in the next week or so. The current budget document and revenue expense control report. Again, here's one of the revenue expense control reports is here. All I wanted to do was just touch on in this where we are, where we're falling short and where we're okay as far as revenues. Now, when you look at the first part here, everything that starts with all zeros is your revenues, okay? And the different codes for the different revenues all the way through your, where you start to, in the A fund, you have 1010, and it says salaries. That's where you start to do your expenses, okay? So when we go through here, and again, I provide this report to the board for every month for you to look at. What I look for is anything that's got parentheses around it, okay? Because that means that we don't have anything left, okay? Yeah, that federal aid, that's more of a, that's probably just a category or a timing issue, but that's nothing, no concern. So let's go to page 3 of 17.
Whoa, that one is.
Okay, and they're, this basically I'll kind of relay to you what this is. So if we look at 3020.01 and 012,
3020,
okay, you see where it says salary overtime?
With parentheses.
Go all the way to the right,
Stop.
okay, and what do you see? $10,965.49 in parentheses. Page 3 of 17.
Yep.
See it?
Yep.
Okay, that means that we are we are over budget
Yeah.
by that amount. If you go 2 lines down from there, you see your 04 line, your contractual. That shows how much you have left in that contractual line in the same department. So what I was saying yesterday is your 04 and your 012s are almost in balance. If no further expenditures happen in your 04, you can cover your 012s. If you go a little farther down from there, you have 3120, 15,630 over budget, and then your 04 is 25,797. You have opportunity there to do something. Okay? All right, so we're going to flip. If you look through the next pages, you're going to see that there is quite a few non-parentheses numbers. We still have 4 months left in a year, and that money is earmarked essentially to pay out salaries and so on for that. Now, you go to page 5 of 17. Your state retirement lines, which are 9010.08. It's at the bottom. Your ERS, which is your employees' retirement system, this means non-police or fire, is $128,000. Your police and fire is $207,000. The ERS has a surplus of $6,500. Your police had a deficit of $5,000. So we had to pull additional $5,000 to cover the police.
When it says police and fire retirement, that
It's a
is
code.
just a category,
It's a
because
category.
LoSAP.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. I think that applies maybe to the cities.
LoSAP is for the fire
Yeah.
retirement.
Yeah, LoSAP is for fire, there's
Length
also,
of service
For volunteers.
pension.
and that's also the,
They get a pension?
Yeah.
yeah,
After a certain amount of time and your age.
Maybe like $400.
the ambulance corps also in the town. The ambulance corps at the town gets again, it's nowhere near the type of pensions that you're
No,
looking
I know,
at.
I was involved in firemen,
I think they.
Yeah.
I don't know we got a pension.
When you were involved, it probably wasn't there. It only came about in the
Yeah.
last
10
eight
years?
years.
It's an attempt to, well, it's a
Encourage
benefit to
volunteers.
encourage
Yeah.
volunteers.
Yeah. Believe me, if all we had to worry about was LoSAP, we would even be talking about it.
I just never heard of it.
But be aware that Fort Montgomery has gone from 20 years to
Anthony,
40
you picking
years.
everything up that we're talking about?
Accumulating benefits. Our fire
Okay,
department
good. Don't
wants
hesitate to ask any
get
questions.
that on next year's ballot to also go up,
Okay, good.
but it has to be broken down.
Okay. All right, so then if we flip a little bit more, we'll see our health insurance. Our health insurance line is a very big cut of the budget. It's almost $700,000.
Where are we at?
Right here.
This is page
I got it.
6 of 17.
About 3 lines down.
Okay, so health insurance and your workers' compensation numbers,
190.
okay? It's up here.
44.
We budgeted 125,000, might be a little bit short, we'll see. And then after that, your 9710s are your bonds, and you can see how much money you're paying toward debt service. Now, we do have some debt service coming up that we have to pay out, and we've had some that we have paid out. Okay, so if you look at your bonds, 2009, that money was paid. 2012 bonds were paid. Look at the interest on your 2009 bond. $116,000. Okay? So that's what happens when you have a big debt burden, a big piece of your budget is going toward payment of interest. So if you look at interest expense alone, in the A fund, you're looking at almost $200,000 in interest. Okay?
How do you disseminate this information to the public?
Exactly what we're doing.
Kind of in depth. A lot of times budget sessions, you don't even go through a lot of this stuff. I'm doing this so you guys really have a good idea, and hopefully anybody in the public that watches, as you can see, there's nobody here.
What I'm suggesting is that you don't put out a little cheat sheet for people, just leave it.
It would be a book or a cheat sheet that very few people would, if they actually were concerned about what we're really getting into now, they'd either be here or they would check out the website.
Okay.
That's, to get into further, the basics or what we want to educate the public about. Anybody who wants to get in further, again, we always have, Ed always makes himself available as well as board members.
Yeah. The bottom line is that what most people pay attention to is what happened to their tax bill. If their tax bill stays flat or goes negative as far as improves, you don't know, no peeps. Okay? One of the things that you're finding now is there's not a lot of discussion about it because the tax cap is keeping everything below 2%. So, that's part of the scenario.
You really don't have a lot of power over that retirement thing either. It was up
No,
and down.
that's state
It
driven.
was the same as in education.
Yeah,
It's just-
state driven number.
Right.
Okay, so now let's go to the F fund, which is water. So you're gonna skip, that's page 10 of 17. And in that, we have your revenues. And if you look, the water revenues are pretty good. You're looking at regular customers and then outside users. Your revenue for that is approximately 800,000, and then with penalties and other things, you're looking at $830,000 in revenues for the water department, which is what you budgeted.
I
Okay.
don't see that.
Good. Take line metered sales. See metered sales, original budget.
Yeah.
Okay, 597,105.
Yeah.
We've received so far at the 6-month billing point, $306,000. See
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Which means that I'm estimating that our second bills will come in probably around where the balance is, and our budget number should be pretty solid. All right. When you look at outside users, the revenue for outside users has went up. So I anticipate that outside user water service will probably hit about 230,000 for the year. We budgeted 220. That is a water services line, 2378. Okay, so that's your revenue for water. And then if you look at your expense lines for water, the only line that is in negative for expenses is overtime for water salaries. That's $10,000 overspent.
In water?
Yeah,
Now, is that
Again, that
because
goes back-
scheduled overtime?
that's the Saturday, Sunday testing,
Flushing hydrants.
flushing hydrants,
We
again,
have some infrastructure too. We've had a couple of times they were
Yeah,
out.
well, they had some water leaks too,
Yeah.
but these are, it's overtime, but it's sort of, it's gonna happen with the water.
but again, you budgeted 5%.
Yeah.
Okay, so your 5% budget on that was $6,500 was your overtime for that department. But remember, you were talking about having a part-timer doing the weekend testing.
There was some reasons, I'm trying to remember, the guy had to have a license and all kinds of, there was, I don't know where.
They have to be licensed.
We
Well,
had-
we told that.
I don't remember, yeah.
We told that.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to have a license.
So I think that, maybe that 5% is an unrealistic number for overtime for them, I don't know.
Well,
Are we gonna pursue that?
Well, we can have a conversation with them anyway,
Where we're at right now is, and again, when we talk about, police, comp time doesn't help. Comp time helps in water and sewer, not even so much as DPW. It's not having the manpower makes a huge effect. But, as long as, it was discussed with water and sewer. Sewer said that they won't, they're not. You don't have to have someone that's licensed if the licensed people will sign off on it.
That's sewer,
Right,
right? Yeah.
that's what John told me.
John, and they're not comfortable signing off on a part-timer that's not, they've done it in the past, but that's because the part-timer was becoming a full-time. They're not comfortable doing a part-timer, it is what it is. Right now, the sewer is, for the most part, remaining comp, which is holding our overtime to a minimum. On the water side, as far as the scheduled overtime, I believe, water worker A is always doing one weekend day. And it's the other weekend day that we're getting hit. We only have one application under the water. I'm gonna pursue another one, and just to have it, because the goal was to have additional help also at nights and on weekends for breaks, also for, plowing. You know, if you had those, and part-timers don't cost us benefits and everything else. So that was the goal, but it really wasn't accepted that well.
Well, and
Yeah.
the guy who we spoke to really didn't really want that position for that money.
Right, it's a catch, it's a catch 22.
The part-timer that I was trying to set up an interview, I spoke to Johnny, and Johnny talked to him, and we went back and forth a few times, and we talked about money, and I think we came back, and I think I asked you, and I said, it's about this dollar amount, and he's not interested. I said, ask him anyway, and let me know, and that's where we left it. So.
And we went on a higher end, we didn't go on the low end of the, you know, he is a seasoned sewer person.
He was a licensed guy.
Yeah, so we went on the higher end of a newer person. We're saying, you know, normally you bring someone at 13, we were talking more like 15, you know, 16 an hour. What we're looking for is someone that's looking for some extra money, they get 5 hours, so it's like 60, 75 bucks. And it's not, you know, it doesn't take the whole day. It is, you know, I think we should pursue it, as long as it doesn't cost us, we still should pursue it. Because, you know, we will find somebody. And then we have to check the specs also to make sure the board's educated as to the fact of, do you need it, don't you need it, what the rules are.
Yeah.
Because that's.
I don't know.
Right.
I base it upon the conversation with the person who's telling me what the rules are.
Right.
So.
And the problem is that expectations, unfortunately, that have been built up over the last 20, 30 years for workers, we're also on a bad end for workers. Meaning that most of our workers, with the exception of police, have been with us for 20 or 30 years.
Yep.
It's not like we have a lot of $10 workers, where, in fact, Gary, worker 47, was telling me about one of the workers now that's one of our older workers. When they started 25 years ago, it was $7 an hour.
Yes.
And now it's more like $28, $30 an hour.
But the benefits were great.
And the benefits are great, and the benefits are still great. But, so we're on the bad end of that, where we have a lot of older workers. And the fact that when they came on, scheduled overtime, it's such an oxymoron. But it's expected. And it's the same thing with the police. It was, or DPW. Well, this is your base pay, but you're guaranteed the overtime when you plow, and you're guaranteed this, because it's gonna happen, because we do it all the time. So when we try to cut costs, it's frowned upon in our departments of, why are they trying to cut our
There's a lot of
salary?
resistance.
It's not your salary.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a problem, but it's what's been done forever. And that's what we're fighting, you know, we're fighting trying to, just a small fix of one day, 52 days for the year, trying to save that money. It's to them, to the workers, it's a huge slap. And we're not trying to slap you, we're just trying to be able to have you stay here in this community.
My recommendation, did we lose Lou? My recommendation is because your biggest challenges are in the A fund, that this type of scenario really just, the department head needs to work with the trustee on making sure that the justification of the overtime is there. As long as there, water main breaks, overtime, okay, makes sense. Weekend, have to go in and do testing, are there any other resources? No, that's what we have, okay, makes sense. And then live with it. Because your F fund and your G fund have more flexibility to handle it, where your A fund does not. I'm not saying that you ignore it.
No.
I'm just saying that if you take 10 issues that you want to target as far as cost controls, these are probably 11 and 12.
Sorry.
Okay, so in the same, you'll find a similar situation with the sewer fund. If we go over to sewer, and that's page 12 of 17. The rents for sewer were budgeted at 144,521. We collected 141,552. So we're short about 3,000. In budgeting terms, that's pretty much spot on.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. There are some collections from some other sources. We received a little over the amount that was budgeted there. If we go down as far as our expense lines, there is no overtime, they haven't broken the overtime line. That's 8130-012. But it was budgeted for 5%, so that's 10,150. They have 4,753 remaining. Now, last year it wasn't as good, so I have to credit the sewer department for maintaining. And what the sewer department's proving is that 5% figure can be done.
You're talking apples and oranges in many ways. When you have part-time, there's no policy when part-time people say, I'm not coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And they can call you that day and tell you not to
Mhm.
in. So how do you fill that in?
You hire new part-timers that are available.
And also, do we have a policy that by seniority, full-timers get the overtime versus people lower?
It's pretty much, the wink is that your seniority rates.
Because that's a huge hit.
Yep.
So again, even with all those rules there, the 5% figure can be maintained if it's well managed. Certainly there are other considerations,
Right.
not everything's in control of the
Right.
department head,
Right.
but a lot of things are in the control of the department head. So that's why I'm just saying that the 5% threshold that you've set
Yes.
can be done. And it's been proven there. Okay? So that's the budget review. When we start next Monday, I'll start to provide actual spreadsheets. And I'll start to populate them with the departments that have submitted. I'll try to get as much of it in as I can. I might not get all the ones I've given you for Monday. It's gonna be a working paper. The way I did it last year, we had version A, version B, version C, version D, after we had meetings. Did that work? Is everybody okay with that? Okay, so that's how I'll provide them this year?
Next Monday, we have a special meeting at 6 and budget 7. Can we close that window? Because we're only gonna need like 15 minutes for the special meeting.
The first meeting's always tough because I got a lot of documents to prepare, so if I can, sure, otherwise, there's other things probably you put on the table after that. You don't have any workshop stuff outstanding?
Everything.
Vote on. we had to vote
3-hour
on
meeting,
something.
just
I thought we did that this thing.
All right, again.
Say, instead of 6, maybe special meeting at 6:30.
What are we voting on?
Al,
Oh,
I
okay.
thought we did that last night, no?
no, it's something else. It's
Okay.
only gonna take 10 minutes.
All right, so what
Yeah,
time we start?
lead agency.
Yeah.
I wanna put it down, what time? 6?
Well, do you want it to come in at 6 And if that takes 15 minutes, spend another 45 minutes talking about,
Start the
Possible
budget
other
process
issues?
early.
It's
or,
hard on Monday, because I
Okay,
wanna
right.
make sure I have all the paperwork.
Then you wanna move the meeting to 6:30?
that's what I'm saying.
You know, if I could get here at 4:30, then it's not a big deal,
That's
but
right.
I'm sometimes getting in here at 6.
Is that gonna be an issue to call Al and just have him
No,
6:30?
I'll call him,
We
but
still
it'll
have time,
have
we'll
to be
still have another
posted.
20 minutes or so, to talk about additional issues, but I'm,
6:30.
6:30 is on Monday?
Okay. All right, so next on the schedule here, key imperative for tonight's initial discussion, general and specific. The imperatives that I would just want to put out is tax cap's real. The A fund is going to be your target. Fund balance isn't going to be available unless you want to dip into a fund balance that will become lower than you or I should be comfortable with.
And what'd you say, what are we comfortable with?
500 is probably the low point.
Okay, all right, and you think
I'm-
that will be
I
around
believe we're
500?
around 5.
Okay.
And then the fund balances for your water and sewer departments are much better. So those are the main things we have to focus on. And then specifically what I'd ask is if you can spend a little bit of time reviewing each of those budgets and scrutinize what you think is nice to have versus have to have. As I said, a lot of the items that are built into the budget, like ERS, health insurance, you know, those are all things that they are what they are. Health insurance, you have to expect increases. There is, I believe we have an incentive, yes, we do, if we don't take, if our members don't take health insurance, they get a payout,
There's a buyout.
you know? Find out, 'cause maybe we have an employer or two that might want, they're not aware of it, and might take that payout. Okay?
I
That-
don't remember what we have with the police, I know we have it with the police, it says 30%, 30?
Okay.
I mean, but you know something, even if it was, whatever the percentage was.
It's a
or
savings.
It's still, it's a savings for us, and let's say somebody else is giving 30 away, and if it costs us 40% to save the cost of that, family.
You get 4 people to take the buyout, and you're putting 50,000 back in the budget. Okay, so certainly seeing if any, because a lot of people don't even think about, oh, you know what,
No.
maybe their wife has a good plan, but they just haven't thought about it.
And you know something, by
What's the
having
percentage?
a
Is that in
number,
the- is that in the contract?
it's 30%, yeah.
Yeah.
But going forward, if something like that is flexible when you're doing your police negotiations, that's something that really, if you can get 1 or 2 people to bite on that, it really is a savings. I mean, it sounds like 30, 40% you give them away. You're actually, if you have people that take it, then it's.
That's something that we could actually put in as a give to the police and all our departments, and say that instead of saying a percentage, just saying 30%, something to the effect of 30%, or to the board's thing, up to whatever. I mean, as you're saying, even if it's 80%, we're still saving 20%.
Well, that's what we
To be
negotiate.
able to negotiate it.
Yeah, we throw that out on the table
Right.
last one and kind of.
Not saying, I don't wanna put 80% in the contract, what I'm saying is, in the contract saying 30%, and allow us to negotiate it at this point. You know, and saying that it's flexible for us to decide that, you know, this person just came in. Well, as you said, they're offering 50%. Yeah, but if we over 60, we're still saving 40.
That's my point.
You know, I don't wanna lock us into 70% when we can get 30. But
Well, it's nice to know what.
to be able to
everybody
do
else is
employee
doing.
by employee.
Well, I'll tell you right now, typically out there's 20.
Yeah, that's why.
30% is actually in the high.
That's why we put it at 30, I
Yeah.
think,
Mhm.
because we had checked at one point in time, I don't remember what hill, and that's where that number came from, I think.
Should we send something out, a notice, or
Oh, it's in the
a memo?
contract.
No.
Oh,
Send a memo out right now, like re-putting it out there to our employees of, are you aware that there's a buyout? Because, you know, maybe they're not.
It wouldn't hurt.
No, it wouldn't hurt, but I think they're aware. I think that they're aware of the contracts.
See, my issue is, if you're gonna set a percentage of what you're paying, that goes into retirement. That saves a lot of money for villages, same with the school districts. I mean, you know, we don't look at that now.
Retirement.
Yeah, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, you don't know what it's gonna be economically around here. That's a tough pill to swallow, believe me. And you can't differentiate, in times, you can't differentiate in the grandfather clause, well, you're free home and these other guys aren't. Can't do that either. Because when you do that, you're looking at the people who make less are paying more. And as Ed said, salaries went up. So did the benefits, not to the same scale, but enough to throw you off.
Specific items, we talked about debt service, we're modifying debt service to give room on the A fund. As Brian has said, goals, okay, measurable goals,
Yep.
okay. 04 expense, my goal is to cut that 10% by maybe buying products, negotiating for prices a little bit better on products, especially big ticket products. One thing I see, the maintenance contract we have for these standby generators,
Yeah.
personally, I think we're paying way too much money
Who
for
do we
that
have,
stuff.
Peak Power?
Peak Power, yeah, I believe it's Peak
You
Power.
know, there's a number of guys that do it today,
Yeah.
and smaller shops.
And they're charging mileage to get here and back.
20.
A lot of these places, you can negotiate the mileage right out. No mileage, you want our business, here's the flat rate to check our thing. You don't want it, we'll get somebody else.
There's, Generac, and
Yeah.
there's 2 or 3 guys in Newburgh that have
Yeah.
the same thing, and Perry, Pete Perry, and
Yeah. So-
Middletown, I think.
So it would be very good to go to the department heads and say, guys, on generator services, on elevator services, on, I think there's a hoist or something down in sewer department.
There's an elevator
or an elevator, yeah.
I remember.
You know, we want those renegotiated, we want better pricing. Okay, one of the things I know at the town, there's an elevator inspection. The town was paying something like, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was like $10,000 for a year's worth of inspections. We renegotiated that down to $2,700. Same inspections.
I agree.
So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on the expense side that the department heads need to be asked. You know, this generator maintenance, number one, do we need to maintain it every quarter? Maybe every 6 months is acceptable, all right? You know, there's been some cases where I've read, needed to do service at the senior center because it ran out of oil, okay? We should be on automatic deliveries on that, on the senior center, so that you don't run out of oil. The thermostat in there should be controlled, locked, or whatever, and only the person who has the key to the building controls that. So those are all the kind of low-hanging fruit items that I think the department heads could help the board in trying to make the money go farther.
And we need to, I think, emphasize, don't forget, it's 3 bids. And there's gotta be written permission before you take a vehicle out and get it fixed somewhere else. You gotta tell us in writing, we all agreed to that.
Yeah.
We agreed to it, that said, it has to be done in writing, and it can't be done until it's approved. Am I,
Yeah,
Well,
unless it's an
is-
emergency.
Yeah, if there's
Right.
gotta be an override if
or didn't we say that?
we did
Right.
talk about approval of the.
Pat's taking notes, I'm just saying, I think that ought to go in that memo. Do you agree? I mean, sometimes I think we say things and it's like, oh, yeah, okay, they just said it, but we're gonna walk.
That's, it's a fact.
Right, it's a fact, Jack, I understand. But now I think it's time to say, no, this is it.
Mhm. Okay, so village board comment period. So I kind of open it up to any comments, any things that any board member specifically wants to put on the table, anything that we are doing, any deliverables that you want, anything you want to review while we go through these meetings. Okay, we do have a standard layout like we've done in previous years, but is there anything from any board member that you guys want to share that you think would be helpful, or, you know, is the current process good, does it work? You know, I wanted to kind of get a chance to hear from you guys as to anything that you guys want to do.
Once we agree on something, we all agree to it. Doesn't go outside. If we agree to it, it goes to it, as we used to say in the world of education. There have been times before that things would be agreed upon and all of a sudden there was a change and nobody knew about it. I'm suggesting that that's not the way it's gonna be here. If we all agree on something, that's where we execute it.
Well, again, you will, with the tentative budget, you will have all of the changes on the paperwork, and you'll be able to comment on anything that you're not.
Right.
Okay, ultimately, if there is a disagreement on some items, you guys essentially majority determines what you want to do with it.
Right.
Okay, anything else, Board?
Off the top of your head, just ballpark, how much money did we put in specified reserve funds last year?
You mean for this budget that we're in now, 65,000?
Oh, you had it right on the top.
It's right here. You can always look at this yourself.
Where's that at?
Village Hall Repair Reserve,
Oh, I saw that on the first page.
65,000.
But that's just for Village Hall, we had.
No, it's, this title, I can't,
Yes, I looked at that number, I'm saying,
can't,
she's
the way the
right.
system,
Yeah, we're in good shape.
yeah, the way the system's set up, I have
We do need
to,
to
everything's
put
in one clump.
Okay.
But the first title is Village Hall. Believe me, if we had that type of repair reserve,
Yeah, we'd be in
we have
good
about
shape.
$200,000 for the village building, that'd be nice.
Well, that, yeah, where did that boiler fall in?
The boiler fell into the fact that you deferred the money for this budget. So we're not, 10,000 of this number's not going in. And we're taking 4,000, I believe, from the reserve fund that we have established with New York Class. And then I think that there was some money in that buildings fund which paid the difference, if I recall.
This is pretty intricate. I'll have to study up on this stuff.
Oh, it's a killer, and it's gonna be a super killer this
You know,
year.
I looked at that number and
Yes.
I saw the 65,000. I didn't realize that was for the reserve funds.
We don't
Yeah.
have a lot of choice.
It's also kind of in a strange spot because it's on the revenue side.
You know what I mean?
But when you've
Because
got
we're essentially
salaries going up 2%,
waiting to receive that money for those reserve funds.
Okay.
Was
so-
one thing if the cap was 2%.
And the money
Yeah.
that came in for the taking down a house, and the other money that came in for lawn maintenance, we had a department meeting this morning. Bruce is looking to get more aggressive this year. So we need to make sure that the money that came back, rather than having come out of some other contingency fund or whatnot, any money that comes back from that needs to go, we need to set up some kind of a fund that goes into.
Well, remember, that
So that
becomes, no,
revolves.
that becomes a re-levy, so that re-levy essentially is a revenue for you.
I know that, what I'm saying is, and maybe we should, I think that we need to have, one, if we don't budget it, then I would like to see us, any money that comes in from the taxes when they're re-levied, that money goes into the fund to sustain the program for,
It's very time late, though. What you really need to do is you have to set up a budget line item for public safety.
okay, done.
Well, you have the line item, you gotta fund it.
Can we fund it with the money that just came in from the?
There's such a
Like Angela.
time frame with that stuff that you just need to fund it out of your budget and then expect that your revenue will come in on the backside when the
How
re-levy
much was
comes
that,
in.
60? Came from
That house?
Yeah,
30.
It's like, no, it was like 55 if I recall. The
okay.
asbestos is what really popped that up.
Yeah.
Public safety, let's see.
Well, it's something new, I bring it up because it's something new, we need to make sure, because he's looking to get, and again, it's gonna be, we'll get the money back, but it's gonna take a year. He's looking to get more aggressive with that, to follow, two and a half years ago, our whole game plan was not to have these properties in our community, and he's willing to stand tighter on the law,
Yeah.
which means more properties will get notices, more maintenance will be done, it will cost more.
No, and we had that conversation, him and I said, well, you know, it's a wonderful thing you're doing, Bruce, but we don't have any money to take any more buildings down, so.
No, not buildings, just the lawn maintenance.
Oh, okay.
No, what, we don't have any money to take.
Sa-
Yeah,
Safety,
right.
safety inspection,
Okay.
okay?
I'm
so
just
you
talking
can-
about the lawn maintenance,
So
not
you
taking-
can,
Right.
when we get to the part of the budget with the DPW, let's put on the table safety inspection, because it's never been funded for the last 3 years at least. I don't think it's probably been funded in a long time. You can fund safety inspection for your 04 contractual. And was there a safety, Gina, do you recall, was there a safety employee in the village? Did you know?
That was the code enforcement officer.
Code enforcement, okay. So there was a salary for code enforcement, but now that it's town, largely town function, you could populate the 04 for safety inspection contractual, or you could do other public safety contractual and fund that with $10, $15, $20,000, and that's what you'll pay for that out of. And then it gets re-levied, and then on the backside, in the following year, it will hopefully be recouped when they pay their taxes and the county makes us whole.
And I assume, since the building department is housed in the town, that when the inspectors do the safety inspections in the village for multifamily homes, those fees go to the town. We don't share those.
That's a good question.
Yes,
I don't recall,
right?
I'd have to look at that.
Yeah, I don't recall that we've ever gotten
Yeah,
fees
I don't
from the
recall
village.
seeing anything along those lines. I know that the code and the law was through the village, but it would only make sense that that money should go to the,
Town, if they're
The
paying
labor.
the inspector.
yeah. Yeah, I don't recall receiving that. I'll have to look at that though.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Okay, anything else to go over as far as board comments?
I'd like to find another revenue stream.
Well, you guys have one,
What is that one?
911.
And the flagpoles.
And the
Flagpole.
flagpoles,
We need to
yes.
set up a meeting to negotiate.
Yeah.
Okay, next, we're almost done today. Treasurer's areas of interest and priorities. My main area of interest with this budget this year is the A fund for obvious reasons.
Yep.
My other area of interest is the discussion of the department heads having a better acumen for costs. Okay?
Yeah.
And I'd like to be able to stress that during the budget sessions.
Mhm.
And I'd ask the board to support that and stress that themselves.
100%.
One of the reasons why I'm having the department heads do a lot more of the preparation, because before a lot of numbers were probably provided for them,
Mhm.
is because it's having them have to think through their cost structure and letting them visually see what it costs to run the police department. Okay? People look at, well, I got 10 officers and this and that. They forget about 210,000 in PFRS costs. They forget about the couple $100,000 in health insurance that goes into that. They forget about all the other benefits that are built in their chart days, all the other columns on the payroll. You look at public works and the costs involved there. One of the things that we're discussing is, are we well served to have public works coming in really early and on Fridays and leaving early? And then we have a problem at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, and now we're paying overtime to deal with that.
No, we're discussing that, that's something that's.
Yeah.
So these are the types of things that, if we're going to be able to get those efficiencies done, these are topics that the department heads have to be part of the conversation. And not necessarily the board just saying, all right, here's your number, live with it. If you go over, we'll have to work it out. Okay? Again, starting on Monday, the goal will be to have the department heads sell their numbers to the board. Okay?
I think this is gonna be a learning process, and what I mean by that is I remember the first time we handed out the goals. 3 people said, is this really part of our job responsibility? Do you remember that, Ed?
Yes.
We handed out the goals, and they said, is this really part of our job responsibility? So maybe I would suggest that after they have this budget process, that we get together again and set up the sequence of what we expect from, what we mean by defining fiscal responsibility and what their responsibilities are in order to do that. It's like a pyramid. the way I look at it. Here, fiscal responsibility, this is how you get to it. I was shocked that three of them said, oh, we didn't know we were fiscally, yeah, you are. You are.
Mhm.
That's quite a big
Yeah.
department head.
Yep, absolutely, and again, that's why, you know, we're going through all this stuff,
Yep.
because this way you're prepared and you feel comfortable about the financial questions that are being asked. So that, when we talk to the department heads and the department heads say, okay, these are my numbers, you can scrutinize those, like, you know, Charlie was just showing me one of the numbers in one of the things, I won't name it, but the eyes pop open when you look at that, because you're like, wait a second, that's going in the other direction, okay? So,
This is the
and
question.
it's no fault of the department head, the department head to some degree has a need, okay? You have some equipment here that was bought in the 1980s, and there have been no provisions over the years to set aside money to build to buy the replacement. And now the replacement's calling, and there's no funds, and the tax cap is saying you can't ask the taxpayers to fund it. So the only other option that you could have is not provide that service with that machine anymore.
But
Or-
can't you rent?
You
that
could,
type of equipment?
you could rent that type of equipment, absolutely. That is a fair statement. And that's a fair statement to ask the department head.
Well, in certain applications you can, but on emergencies.
Yeah, like a snow plow, you probably can't necessarily rent the snow plow, because when you need the snow
Yeah,
plow,
everybody
everybody
else
else
does.
probably needs it
Yeah,
too.
and your time is pressing.
Yeah.
Those types of pumps and different things you have to have for emergency. But you're right, some stuff, like if it was lawn cutting equipment, something that's gonna sit idle all winter long, you could maybe, who knows? I don't know what equipment that you could possibly rent, but I know some stuff just
I
wasn't
know,
feasible to rent.
we'll talk about it.
Okay, so, that's it. I left an executive session if there's any specific items, people, budgetary considerations related to that. If any board members have that, we can, you know, talk about that in executive session because of its confidentiality. But that's not, that, I only put that there as a matter of routine. If there's nothing to go over, we don't have to do executive session.
Thanks for all the work you put in.
No, I, believe it or not, this is,
Excuse me,
this is,
thanks for all the work you put in.
thank you.
Yeah, okay.
This is,
You did a nice job.
this, believe it or not, this is the part of treasurer, budget officer that I like the most.
I'll never be able to figure it out.
I actually like this part out of everything, because this is crunching,
There is something wrong with you. This is fun.
Yeah, I agree. You know, that's, but some.
well, at least one of us does, so I'll,
It's a good, somebody's gotta like it.
Yeah, if you can get creative and crunch them down even further.
yeah, but thanks, Brian.
I need a motion to go into exec.
Motion to go in exec.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Is that thing on?
We're in exec.